Alright, this is your chance to enter the Winton British Solving Championship. I mean, not really, but this is the starting problem that they proposed for this year. The Winton British Solving Championship is a tournament where people try to solve chess problems. Points are then awarded based on how much of the solution the solver is able to find. It's a fun tournament for people who really love chess puzzles. Now, let's start the video. It's White's turn to move and checkmate in 2 moves. Now, it seems pretty easy, right? A 2-move checkmate. Well, if it's so easy, it wouldn't really be the opening challenge of this tournament. Now, let me know in the comments if you did manage to solve it right away. You might have to qualify for next year's tournament. Alright, so usually in positions like this, you're going to look for a forcing move. Now let's see what forcing moves we have, starting with checks. We see that queen can check on d2 or h2, but we also see that both of those squares are defended by black. What about rook to g2 check? Well, king to e1, we see that we don't have a checkmate next move, so that's a fail of the challenge. I'll use colors to give you guys a little bit of a hint and help with the visualization here. The green squares are going to be squares controlled by our queen. The blue ones are going to be controlled by our bishop, and the orange ones by the rook. Now we can observe that the king is kind of trapped. We just need to find a move that would check the king. Let's start with moving the knights. The f6 knight can check the king by taking either this e4 pawn or this g4 pawn. So let's assume it takes the g4 pawn. We see with the colors that the enemy king has got nowhere to go right now, so he's forced to take it with the bishop. Now that the bishop is out of the way, we can see that by taking the bishop, we have a discovery check with the rook on f8, but unfortunately, it's not going to be a checkmate in 2 moves, because black could block the check with either the bishop or the queen, making it a checkmate in 3 moves. Now, if black takes the rook with their rook, we have queen to d2 checkmate. We almost had it, but what if we take the other pawn? Now, unfortunately, this is going to end up the exact same way as taking the g-pawn. Okay, so now that we've examined all the potential checkmates with the first move, we can see that none of them really worked. But we already know that this is a 2-move checkmate challenge, so by process of elimination, if the first move is not a check, that only tells us that our second move is going to have to be an unstoppable checkmate from white. By analyzing all the checks, we saw that the knight brought us the closest to the 2-move checkmate. A very important skill in chess is the skill to reverse engineer, meaning instead of starting from the first move, you start from your end goal move and you work your way backward. So let's give that a shot. We saw that the problem was that black could block the rook check with one of his pieces or take the rook. So, is there any way to prevent that from happening? Here, the puzzle gives us a lot of help because it tells us that the checkmate is in 2 moves. So, we can exclude from the start moves like queen takes on d2 due to the fact that we needed 2 moves just to check black's king. So, adding one extra move like this is not going to work. So what about knight to d6, using the other knight to interfere with the bishop and rook defense? Thinking that white could take the d2 pawn next move and checkmate. Sadly, this doesn't work, because black can simply recapture, and we saw that our variation still needs more than 2 moves to deliver that final blow. But what other possible moves do we have here? Well, maybe you're thinking, wait a minute. I was too focused on that discovery check and trying to make it work, that I forgot that I can take the black rook. And after that, I can attack the d2 pawn. It's a very good plan, but again, black has some moves that would prolong the game a little longer. In this position, he can play either queen to d4 or pawn to e3, making it a checkmate in 4 moves. Rook takes, pawn to e2, rook check, king to f3, and we've got a discovery checkmate. Now maybe you're already exploring other possibilities thinking that I purposely misled you, kind of introducing the wrong idea. Maybe you're looking at knight to e3. Okay, fair try. Interesting move as well. But again, black has multiple ways of defending this. He can take the knight or take the rook, and all moves make this a checkmate in more than 2 moves. If black takes the rook, white playing rook to f1 or g2 is not a mate in 1, because the king can escape to either g3 or right over here on e1. So maybe you're thinking of pawn to f4, which cuts the bishop from protecting the h2, where the white queen can deliver a checkmate. It's a pretty brilliant move, I mean it. That was honestly my initial thought after I spent some time analyzing this puzzle. I was thinking he can't take the pawn with the bishop because I can take it back and it's mate. But unfortunately, this doesn't work as well because the black pawn goes down and then black can defend against mate in 1 here by playing pawn to g3. That one little tiny pawn stopping us from joining the Winton British Solving Tournament. Now here, we need to play queen to h3 and queen to g2 for the checkmate, making it again a checkmate in 3 moves. Does anybody have any other ideas? Because honestly, I'm running out. Were you able to find the correct move here? Okay, do you want me to finally give the solution, or do we keep exploring other possibilities? Let me give you another hint. I wasn't misleading you when I told you that you need to find a way to make the knight check work. And I will give you another big hint. The first move is a pawn take. It's either g4 or e4. Now, it's up to you to decide which one to take. Okay, if right away you said g4, I'll tell you off the bat, you're not going to qualify for the championship, because here, black is not going to take the pawn with their bishop. Instead, they're going to play queen to d4, once again avoiding a mate in 2. So now, whatever white tries, the best he can do is a mate in 3. Queen to h4 is met by bishop to g3. Queen takes on d2. Now black captures. Knight to e4, and again, mate in 3. The correct move was actually to take on e4. And if you found that, congratulations. Now, let's see why white has an unstoppable checkmate in the next move. First of all, if black takes with the bishop, then knight to e4 is a checkmate. The king is double checked by both the knight and the rook, and he's got nowhere to move. So, secondly, the reason why we need to take the e pawn and not the f pawn is because if black decides to defend with queen to d4, the white knight can deliver a checkmate by taking the g pawn. Now black can't take the knight with their bishop because it's pinned by the rook on f8. This is why taking the g pawn didn't work, because in that scenario, black would capture our knight with their queen, and this is actually a forced checkmate for black. But what about knight to e5, trying to defend that g pawn? Well, unfortunately for black, moving the knight to e5 would cut his bishop's diagonal, and now white's going to be able to play queen to h2, checkmate, because the knight on c4 controls the e3 square. So the enemy king's got nowhere to go. So there you have it. There's your checkmate in 2 moves. I really hope you liked this video, and I hope you found it challenging. I know I did. Now let me know in the comments if you'd like us to cover more videos like this, or do you want us to stick to our usual endgame stuff? Also, what are your thoughts on these types of tournaments? Would you participate in one of these? Let me know, and let me know if you ever have. Have a good one.